Hey, what's going on, guys? June here with Hapa英会話, and joining me today is Micah. Micah, how's it going?
Hello, June. How you doing today?
Good. So let's talk about nodding today. So, yep, that's it right there. Exactly. Are you a nodder?
I've become a nodder. I've been in
become a
Japan
nodder.
for so long that I think I over nod. When I go back to America to visit, people kind of look at me like something's a little bit different when he's listening to me talk. I'm just constantly going, yeah, like this.
So let's talk about nodding today, and nodding in terms of when somebody is talking to you and it's a way of acknowledging that you're listening to them, right? In your opinion, is it good practice to nod at people while listening?
Yeah, I think nodding is normal, but there's a degree, how much are you nodding? Are you over nodding? I think this is something that we can talk about, especially when it comes to Japanese learners, because in Japan, there's lots of bowing and lots of nodding. Even when you're talking on the phone sometimes to someone, there's a lot of like this going on, whereas in America, that would be kind of strange maybe if you see someone talking on their phone and they're kind of nodding to the person, even though they're not there. Yeah.
So yeah, you mentioned, right, that you find yourself nodding a lot more now than you did before going to Japan. Do you think that generally speaking, that people in Japan nod a lot more than Americans to show that they are listening to the other person?
Absolutely. And it's not just nodding. They can verbally nod too with the aizuchi. There's a lot of aizuchi used when speaking Japanese that is not necessarily used when speaking English in America. We do have aizuchi words like yeah, okay, right, things like that. But I think the quantity that we use, the amount of times that we use them is maybe less than when speaking Japanese. When you're speaking Japanese, a lot of times people, oh, hi, so da ne, like that sort of stuff.
Right.
It seems like it's in my experience, it seems like they use it a lot more than we do when speaking English in America.
So for somebody like you, if you can maybe go back 10, 11 years ago when you first came to Japan and you experienced that for the first time, and everywhere you go, it seemed like everybody was either nodding their head or saying things that were showing that they're listening to you. Did that make you feel uncomfortable, or like did it make you feel like they're actually listening to you and it made you feel good? Like what was your initial feelings when you saw Japanese people nodding quite a bit?
I wouldn't say that it made me feel uncomfortable, but I found it very endearing. Like that the person, it showed that they were really I felt like they were really caring and being very, very careful listening to what I was saying. Well, almost too much. Like it didn't make me feel bad or weird or anything, but it was almost, I don't want to sound like condescending, but it was like kind of cute. It felt like kind of cute. The person was just like very like careful and like listening carefully to me. So it didn't give me a bad feeling. No.
Got it. So here in the United States, if a Japanese person came here, how would you explain the balance? So you know that it's part of the culture, right? So part of it is it's kind of hard to control something that you've been doing your entire life. So if somebody is talking to you, you're probably going to be nodding or saying without even thinking about it. But if you were to provide advice for somebody going abroad, would you tell them just to be themselves and not to worry about it too much? Or would you tell them that it's maybe a little bit better to like strike a balance between nodding and just, looking into their eye, or, whatever gesture it is that you do when you're listening?
I would say it depends on the person and their motives and how long they intend to stay and how native they want their language to sound. If you're just a casual learner and you want to have a good experience and you just want to communicate with the people, it's not a big deal if you're still using Japanese aizuchi sort of movements and language when you're listening to people speak English. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, my advice would be to, as you said, look in the person's eyes, and also when you want to acknowledge or express that you're paying attention and listening to what the person's saying, I would do so in the moments of pause in between what the person's saying. So if they're talking for a long time, in the moment that they pause or they're looking at you for some sort of acknowledgement, then I would be like, right, okay, interesting. Tell me more about that, things like that. It would seem more unnatural if when I'm talking, the person is constantly being like, yeah, to me, that would sound like they're not listening. If they're making these acknowledgement words and aizuchi sort of like sounds while I'm talking, it would make it sound like they're sort of like not really listening to me and kind of pushing me in the background and just faking it. So I would want my students to be careful about that.
I agree with that. It's like a weird thing because I know as a listener, you want to show that you're like really listening to them. So you want to, in a sense, kind of over exaggerate the fact that you're listening. But when you do it too much, even as a speaker, it kind of interrupts your train of thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden you're trying to speak and then this, the aizuchis, it just catches your attention to the point where it can maybe disrupt you if you're overdoing it, of course. So I definitely get that. But yeah, like you mentioned, I think it really depends on how native of a speaker you want to get close to, right? If you're just going to go abroad, not that big of a deal. Maybe it's because I'm around Japanese people all the time, but it's something that never really bothered me that much. And when my students ask me, about like, is it bad that I'm nodding all the time? Like for me personally, like I have no problem with it. If anything, I don't want them to force themselves not to do something that they're like not naturally inclined to do. So then they like all of a sudden like try to like maybe they freeze a little bit or they look very like unnatural. Because when you're trying to force yourself to like do something that you're not normally doing, then maybe your posture and your gesture might give off a completely different vibe. So I guess I usually just tell my students, just try to be yourself. And if you do notice yourself, maybe, saying and nodding too much, you can cut back, but try not to think about it too much. Have you ever come across somebody that will just give you a blank stare the whole time? I've met a couple of people where there's like zero nods. And sometimes they're either directly looking into my eye the entire time, or they're just looking at, they're looking somewhere else and no acknowledging whatsoever. Have you ever come across people like that?
Absolutely. Yes. So on the other side of this, you don't want to overcompensate. You don't want to try to correct the behavior so much that you're just, Micah and June said to look in the eyes and not nod. Like, don't do that, please. That's going to have even worse effects, I think. I would think that person's crazy or has other issues, and maybe being social is not their best skill. Yeah, it would creep me out. It would creep me out, I think.
Yeah, 100% though. And yeah, I think creepy is probably the word. I've had, a couple of people that like will like look me directly into the eye when I'm talking, and those are the kind of people I have the hardest time conversing with. And I'm sure, I'm talking about like American people too. And it makes me feel slightly like, is this person judging me? Am I saying something and he's like bothered by something that I'm saying? Like I start going into like this spiral in my head where I either
does he want to fight? Like, what is
so staring directly into the eye sometimes without like any nodding can be slightly scary too. So I definitely don't recommend that.
Yeah, don't take what we're saying and to say don't ever nod and don't ever like say yes, okay. Like, no, do those things.
Yeah.
But just once you get to that level, maybe start to think about how often you're doing that and if it's natural or not.
All righty, Micah. Well, thank you very much. And to everybody, hope you guys found this video useful today. Don't forget, guys, Micah is an amazing teacher on Cafe Talk. You can find all of his information in the description below, or you can go to cafetalk.com and find him there. Micah, thank you very much. I'll catch you again next time.
Thank you, June, and see you in Cafe Talk, everybody.
Bye, guys.